friends, I feel compelled to share a harrowing event that occurred at a girls' school in Karachi, Pakistan. A 12-year-old student unexpectedly gave birth in the school bathroom. Shockingly, the newborn was also a student at the same school. A video documenting this incident has gone viral. I urge all parents and students from schools, colleges, and universities to watch this video, as it conveys an essential message for everyone. Please view it completely. Here's how I became aware of this tragic event. A female colleague at our school informed me about it. As usual, I arrived at school early when the staff room was still empty. Although some girls were already heading to their classes, my husband often drops me off as he goes to work since his office is quite a distance away. On this particular day, as I walked towards the staff room to remove my burqa, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I realized I had forgotten some necessary items at home, just as my menstrual period had started, which I had completely overlooked. Thankfully, I had the essentials in my bag. With no one else around yet and the teacher's washroom too far away, I opted to use the student's washroom to quickly handle the situation. I was worried about potentially staining my clothes, which would be both embarrassing and uncomfortable. However, when I entered the student's washroom, I was appalled by what I found. My scream resonated throughout the school. I quickly left the washroom, feeling sick. Hearing me, the teachers, students, and even the principal gathered. As it was time for school to begin, seeing my distress, the principal asked if I was all right. Shaking, I described what I had seen in the washroom. She was as shocked by my report as the other teachers, given that such an incident seemed inconceivable at a girls' school. The principal then went into the washroom and came back moments later, covering her nose. With the schoolmaids present, she instructed them to bring the girl found lying there to the staff room. The maids struggled to carry the girl, whose clothes were soaked in blood, to the staff room. It looks like you've mentioned the original, but your message seems incomplete. Could you please provide more context or clarify what you are asking about? I'm here to help with any specific questions or topics you might have in mind. The principal directed the other teachers to keep a vigilant eye outside to stop the news from leaking. Consequently, the girl's restroom was locked. Attempting to stabilize the girl, who had lost a lot of blood, the principal intervened. I believed that the girl urgently needed to be taken to a hospital. But the principal hesitated because the situation was extraordinary and could potentially embroil the school in a police investigation and damage its reputation. To handle the situation discreetly while ensuring proper care, the principal contacted a reputable female doctor. When the doctor arrived and examined the girl, she immediately warned that the girl's condition was critical and that she needed hospital care to avert a possible coma or worse. The starkness of the doctor's warning struck us, and I pressed the principal to act swiftly. We then made the decision to transport the girl to the hospital to determine the next steps. As a mother to 2 daughters, I was deeply shaken to see this little girl in such a critical condition. I went with the principal to the hospital, and she was quickly taken into surgery. While we were waiting, the principal asked if the girl was from my class and if I knew anything about what could have caused her condition or how long it had been going on. I remained silent. Although I had observed signs before and suspected something was wrong, I never imagined it would escalate to this extent. Soon, other senior teachers informed the principal that word had spread throughout the school despite attempts to keep it under wraps, worried about how this could affect the school's image. Particularly since the incident occurred while the girl was in her school uniform and on school grounds, the principal was visibly troubled. She instructed me to manage the situation quietly, notify the girl's parents, ensure she was properly handed over to them at the hospital, and then return to school to resolve the matter. I hesitantly obeyed the principal's orders due to her insistence, and I reached out to the girl's family. The girl was being raised by her single mother, who worked close by, so it was easy to contact her. Upon arriving and learning the full extent of what had happened, her mother was overwhelmed with grief and anger, causing a scene at the hospital. The principal urged her to remain calm, noting that her outburst could potentially worsen her daughter's public standing. Subdued by this, the mother remained quiet. The principal, however, began to interrogate her, accusing her of neglect and attempting to place the blame for the incident on her shoulders. Caught off guard, the mother stood up for her daughter, emphasizing her innocence and devout nature. Bewildered by how the situation had spiraled to such a severe point, When asked about her daughter's incident at school, the principal, a sharp woman, claimed ignorance of the specifics and suggested that the mother could speak with her daughter once she woke up. She then gestured for me to leave with her. Feeling a strong responsibility, I decided to stay, unwilling to abandon the girl in such a vulnerable condition. Known for her reserved and devout demeanor, she was among the most quiet and devout students at our school, and I had noticed her exemplary behavior firsthand. It was obvious that someone was involved in her current situation, but I was unable to defy the principal's command. With school starting, I counseled the mother to stay calm and left with the principal. All the teachers were eager to find out what the girl might disclose. When we got back, she was still unconscious. Later, in the classroom, I overheard children whispering about Jana, trying to understand how such a misfortune could have happened to her. The vivid memory of the scene in the washroom continued to disturb me deeply. How could such an event happen to a 13-year-old? This situation called for an investigation, not suppression. Despite the principal's ban on discussing the incident, the washroom had been cleaned, and any evidence found had been handed over to the girl's mother. As the school day wound down and students dispersed, the prevailing topic still buzzed among the crowd. My own journey, however, diverted not towards home but towards the hospital, to offer support to Jana, a young, innocent girl in dire need, with images of her injured form and the infant beside her haunting me. I arrived unsure if she had yet regained consciousness. There, Jana's mother, with a slight improvement in her daughter's condition, reported, shared that Jana was still unresponsive and hospital policy barred visitors. Through her tears, she voiced her deep concerns and hopes for Jana, yearning for her daughter to escape a life of domestic work and strive for a brighter future. She firmly believed that the roots of this catastrophe lay within the school's confines, revealing Jana's growing apprehension about attending school over the past few months, often crying as she prepared to leave. This decline in her enthusiasm for school, transitioning from a keen interest to reluctance and the fabrication of reasons to avoid it, had prompted her mother to sternly encourage her attendance, a decision she now regretted. Reflecting on her words, I considered the school's male teachers, particularly Muhammad, known for his active engagement with female students. Yet, in the absence of complete information, I reserved judgment until Jana could share her own account. I was notified by a call from home that my daughters had returned from school, necessitating my departure. I requested leave from Jana's mother and assured her that I would come back later to follow up. Even though I was at home, I couldn't stop thinking about Jana. When my husband returned, I shared the entire episode with him. He was surprised and asked if I hadn't noticed anything off with her since she was in my class. I acknowledged that despite Jana being an orphan and appearing constantly anxious, I hadn't noticed any peculiar behavior from her recently. In class, she seemed preoccupied, as though her mind was elsewhere, and her grades had started to slip. She was quiet and often looked ill, occasionally even passing out. I assumed her health issues were due to insufficient nutrition, given her family's economic difficulties, not realizing the severity of her actual problems. Had I understood the full extent of her troubles earlier, I might have been able to prevent this emergency. Now, she was fighting for her life. I asked my husband to go with me to the hospital. When we arrived, Jana had just woken up. I sat next to her, clasping her hand. She appeared frail and troubled. Upon my arrival, she started to sob. I softly urged her to open up and share what had transpired. Yet her tears persisted, and she remained silent, seeing her delicate condition. I decided not to push her any further. After having dinner, I headed back home. Although I believed it was essential to get the police involved, Jana's mother was opposed, worried about the impact on her daughter's reputation. The principal also recommended against notifying the authorities. However, I was resolute in pursuing justice for Jana, bolstered by advice from my husband. After finding the girl in such distress, and being the first on the scene, I was concerned that involving the police might lead them to suspect me, complicating my life with potential job risks and ongoing police inquiries. Despite my husband's inclination to avoid conflicts, the situation compelled me to ensure the safety of my students. Determined to ensure that no one else endured what Jana did, I knew immediate action was essential. The next day, I met with the principal and stressed, "Ma'am, we can't treat Jana's case as a minor issue. Her mother won't contact the police, yet it's imperative that we do. Someone has significantly harmed her, possibly even within our school. You've witnessed her condition. She miscarried a fetus prematurely in the school bathroom, likely when she was about 4 or 5 months pregnant. We're fortunate she survived, or we would be facing a far graver situation." In response, the principal retorted, "Miss Naila, your concern for an orphan is excessive. I have already dealt with the girl's mother by offering financial support for medical care. In my view, this matter is settled. We must protect the school's image and my own reputation. I am due to leave for Hajj early tomorrow morning. If I initiate legal action now and the police start investigating, my trip will be cancelled." She made her stance clear and dismissed me to my class. As I walked to my classroom, the faces of the waiting girls made me ponder deeply. If this happened to Jana today, it could very well happen to someone else tomorrow. This idea made me uneasy, leading me to quietly initiate an inquiry. I spoke with the girls who were close to Jana, all of whom observed that there had been a noticeable change in her behavior recently, but none could pinpoint the cause. Subsequently, a student frequently seen with Jana revealed an important detail. A couple of months ago, the computer teacher had requested Jana to remain after class due to her difficulties with the subject. As she lacked a computer at home for practice, he said he would give her extra help after class. That day marked the last time Jana walked home with me, and afterward, her demeanor shifted noticeably. I started to fear that the teacher might have developed an improper attachment to her. Her newfound arrogance drove a wedge between us, causing me to cut off our communication. When she finally shared these details, the girl stopped talking. It was as if the ground had vanished under my feet. I hadn't anticipated my suspicions about Sir Hamad to be confirmed, so I decided to confront him directly after school hours. As the day wound down and the school emptied, leaving only Sir Hamad and me behind, I seized the opportunity as he was preparing to leave for the day. From behind, I called out to him cheerily, "Riley," as he turned around. I added with a more serious tone, "I've uncovered who was responsible for what happened to Jana." Sir Hamad's face registered surprise as he responded, "If that's the case, you should have informed the police to catch the actual perpetrator." His composed demeanor took me aback. If you were really involved, his casual response seemed uncharacteristic. Curiosity piqued. I pressed further. "Why did you ask Jana to stay back at school 5 months ago? What was so urgent that it required her attention after hours?" He appeared momentarily startled by my direct question and then asked with a hint of defensiveness, "Miss Naila, are you accusing me of something related to Jana?" He paused, collecting his thoughts, before explaining, "Jana was having difficulties with her computer skills, which is why I asked her to stay after school. I wanted to provide her with some extra help in the computer lab." Coincidentally, that was the day my wife called me from the hospital because she was very ill, and as you might know, that was also when my daughter was born. I was in the staff room when I received the call. As I rushed out, I instructed the security guard to make sure Jana was safely sent home from the computer lab. That's all that happened that day. You can double-check this account with Jana or even the guard. After his explanation, Sir Hamad gave me a remorseful look and continued, "I always try to engage with the girls to make them feel comfortable enough to ask questions, as they often hesitate to approach male teachers." With these words, he walked away, a sad figure, left in a state of confusion. I wondered if Sir Hamad was indeed innocent. Then who was responsible? His account seemed plausible, so I decided to verify his story. I approached the guard to inquire about the events in the computer lab with Jana 5 months earlier. It was a long shot, but I was hopeful to uncover some truth based on Sir Hamad's directions. However, upon hearing my question, the guard's face turned pale. He stuttered, "Madam, I don't know anything about this," yet his demeanor suggested otherwise. Convinced that I was close to the truth, I declared firmly, "I'm going to the police now. I've found out all the truth. Jana has told me everything." Even though the guard seemed taken aback, it was clear that the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to come together. In the incident I'm about to recount, the guard refused to divulge any details, merely stating, "Madam, I am only performing my duties." I was oblivious to the gravity of the situation at that moment. I might have pressed him further for answers, but just then, the principal arrived. Her reprimand was swift and dismissive. Miss Mayer, why can't you see that this matter has been settled? Please, go home. I need to leave early tomorrow to catch a flight, and I do not wish for any further complications." Following this brief encounter, I returned home, though the issue continued to weigh heavily on my mind. Later, at the hospital, I asked Jana to recount exactly what had occurred in the computer lab. My questions seemed to reopen a painful chapter for her, as she began to cry inconsolably. Through her tears, she revealed a shocking truth. Sir Hamad had indeed visited her in the lab, but after his departure, the guard took advantage of the empty lab to assault her. She also disclosed that the guard had threatened her life if she spoke up, a threat that left her paralyzed with fear. As Jana's health worsened, she eventually confided in the guard who had been abusing her outside of school hours. Knowing that she was pregnant, the guard started administering drugs to her in an attempt to conceal his actions, which only caused her intense pain. Tragically, just 5 days prior, these drugs had forced her into premature labor, resulting in her giving birth in the school restroom. She collapsed from the side effects of the medication, and had I not arrived when I did, Jana might not have survived. Upon hearing this harrowing story, both I and Jana's mother, who had been unaware of her daughter's suffering, were horrified. After leaving the hospital, I immediately sought the guard, only to learn that he had fled to his village right after my initial questioning, likely fearing arrest. His exact origins or the name of his village remained elusive. Jana's mother was reluctant to involve the police, worried about further damage to her daughter's reputation. Despite knowing the full extent of the atrocities, I felt utterly powerless. The principal had already left for her Hajj pilgrimage. I couldn't help but question the validity of her pilgrimage, wondering if it could truly be deemed righteous, given that she could have potentially stopped the guard but chose silence instead, likely fearing the scandal would tarnish both the school's and her own reputation. So, dear friends, this concludes today's video. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Stay healthy, and may Allah bless you all.